Hello, everyone. My name is Mercy Ndegere, and I recently graduated from the University of Oklahoma this past May in 2023 with a BBA in finance and a BA in economics. Today we have Joey Davis and Stefan Whitwell. A little bit about them. Stefan Whitwell is the founder and CIO of Whitwell and Company with cutting edge expertise in tax planning, alternative investing, and prior work experience in investment banking, mergers and acquisitions in New York City and Tokyo. In his free time, Stefan likes to play the violin. He likes to spend time with his kids and also does Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for 4 days a week. That's really impressive. Over now to Joe Davis. Joe Davis is the president and financial advisor at Stonebriar Wealth Management. With 10 plus years of experience in financial and wealth advising, Joe founded this company called Stonebriar in 2021 that specializes in financial planning, wealth management, tax loss investing, windfall, inheritance management, to mention but a few. Joel likes music and he likes to play the piano. He also played basketball during his colleges. And the aim for this panel discussion is basically to have all the attendees learn more about these two impressive individuals, as well as a career in finance, specifically in wealth management and banking, as well as how to manage finances and building wealth, as well as keeping a company afloat. So to start us off, I have a lightning round for both speakers. Stefan and Joe, would you please like to introduce yourself today? And our first question for today would be, if you were on an island, if you had to try to plan a trip to an island and you only could bring three things with you, what would those three things be and why?
Stefan, I'll let you start this one off.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us. I'm pleased to be on here. My name is Stefan Whitwell, and I run a nationwide wealth management firm. But maybe my most important job is just being dad. I'm lucky to have 4 kids, happily married, and I feel really grateful because I love what I do. Gosh, if I could only bring 3 things on an island, well, I'd say, first, I'd definitely bring my iPad, assuming I had connectivity, or read books, watch movies. 2, I would definitely bring a bathing suit. And 3, I could probably lean up a little bit, but I wouldn't want to go without. So I'd say, a good knife or a fishing pole to help me get through things.
Okay, yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Davis, as Mercy had said here before. And first of all, just congratulations for making it this far and being on this call. It's truly a testament to the type of work ethic that you have. I mean, 47 hours straight of nonstop game-changing content is no joke. And to be a part of it is really, really awesome and amazing. As mentioned, I have my own solo practitioner wealth management practice. I call it Stonebriar. I was with a large bank, HSBC, for 12 years, and ultimately was able to break off and go on my own and kind of do things my own way. I went to Vassar College. I played basketball. I was into music, as Percy mentioned, and I'm also a father to a daughter who turned 5 yesterday and a 2.5-year-old son. And happily married, and I have a unique setup. I'm in Buffalo, New York right now with a big football game on tonight with the Buffalo Bills. But I actually spent many years in New York City, and I just moved back to where I'm from, is Buffalo, and I still have an office there. So, island, a remote island item. I guess I would have to say I love the fishing pole answer, right? It'd be something to do for survival and probably a lot of fun, especially if you're on an ocean. 2, I'd probably bring something musical. I do enjoy the piano, but I can also play the guitar. Probably, I don't know how big the items can be on this airplane or ship that's taking me to this island. So let's say guitar, and then I'll have to say, of course, my laptop. Maybe I could still stay in touch with clients with it too, and figure out some different kind of emerging market trades. But if not, I would have to probably decide on a really good book. And let's just say, I don't know, for fun, Harry Potter.
That all sounds exciting. So for the people that are watching, as we are going through this whole panel discussion, at any point, if you have any questions, any follow-ups, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll be sure to present them to our speakers. But if you are interested in, wealth management, banking, or, the likes, you are definitely in the right place, because our speakers are both experienced and successful individuals in the financial industry. And I have a few questions for them. So to start us off, both of you, Stefan and Joe, you are in the financial industry. So I would like to know a little bit more about what piqued your interest in pursuing your current career path. Are there any activities that you were involved in school that prepared you for your career?
After you, Joe.
Sure. My family likes to joke that, at least my brother, that I was quite parsimonious as a kid. He still jokes that I never spent my communion money. So I always kind of had this, coin collection. I had a little safe, and I was always kind of just tuned into, money and investing and things. So I guess you could start there as the first thing. But in college, as far as finding a career path, I kind of backfilled my career journey. I knew I wanted to be in New York City, or a large city for that, but New York was not too far from home and from the same state where I grew up, although it's worlds away. I kind of liked the idea of a large, big organization, a corporate lifestyle, working in a tower, and economics kind of seemed like the right, liberal arts, generalist kind of track for me to get a degree in. I actually was a minor in Hispanic studies and musical theory too. So I had a couple of different hobbies that I concentrated on, but economics I felt would be, a good pivot to say, if it's not investment banking, if it's not a hedge fund, if it's not wealth management, or law, I might just be able to find a career with that background. So it kind of prepared me in a multifaceted way. Just to quickly answer your question, what skills, coming from a, liberal arts school with not as concentrated of a focus as, an MBA, for example, or other universities. First and foremost, reading, writing, and communication. Being able to read and write, and being able to put together a good email. I think you can never underestimate how important and effective that is in your career. And I actually owe my 4 years at school a lot to just the reading, writing, and communication aspect. And then the last thing is, as an extracurricular, sports, the ability to keep your head down and drive results and do repetition after repetition and not get tired until you've perfected your craft, whether that's shooting jump shots or making phone calls when you get started in your career. That's something I would say was an important skill for me to polish in the formative years.
So I'd add a couple things. I'd say that the three things that attracted me to the wealth management business are, number one, I love the fact that it's super integrated. To give good advice to people requires an understanding, especially thinking of a business. If I'm giving advice to somebody that owns a business, I've got to understand and be empathetic to what it's like to own a business. They're going to want advice on different ways to do things in their business, different entity types. They're going to want to talk about taxes. They're going to want to talk about funding strategy. They're going to want to talk about the markets, financial planning. And I would also say that the one thing that school doesn't prepare you for, that is super important to integrate into any relationship in wealth management, is the person's feelings and values. Incredibly important. In order to lead clients, you really have to understand their heart, understand their goals, understand their fears, and be able to talk about it. So taking a page out of something that Joe and I share in common, which is music. I've been playing violin for over 40 years. I would say that one of the most important things that I did that has helped me is learning to listen. And I first learned that in the context of music, not just surface level listening, but I mean really deep, deep, deep listening. And the reason that's so important is that nobody's going to want to listen to you and really act on your advice unless they know that you understand what's most important to them and what they're paying for. And the only way you can demonstrate that is by listening, active listening. And it's, in fact, I'd say that in prospect meetings or even new client meetings, one of my most important objectives in leaving that first meeting is for them to have 100% confidence that I really listened to them and understood what their needs are. Obviously, there's a lot of things in school that are applicable that will help you in different ways. But I just wanted to emphasize listening because I think that it's a skill that's so overlooked and you take it for granted. But I'll tell you, in meetings with the most senior people in industry, a person who listens loudest wins. And it's a real strategic advantage if you embrace it as an actual tool to help you in whatever you decide to do, wealth management or anything else.
Thank you both so much. So right after college, Joe, you went and started your career at HSBC, Retail Banking and Wealth Management, where you went on to spend over 11 years working there. And the question for you today is, what are some skills and talents that you developed there that served you well in your current role?
Great. Yeah, no, terrific question. Well, for me, it was working for a large organization was a really great way to get acclimated to the industry. I was able to see many different areas of banking and wealth management and do a full, basically rotations through different parts of the bank and kind of learn what I liked and didn't like. So the complexities of working with a large organization is something that was really valuable for me. When I was able to start with the graduate program at HSBC, you kind of learn the politics of a big organization too. One thing I could say now is, I don't have to deal with that quite as much, but being able to put yourself in the position to be the one that gets the opportunity, there's a little bit of a game to that. Those of you who are, about to graduate and looking at large organizations, it's good to know that you want to be a team player, you want to make good relationships, you want to network, you want to ask about having a mentor. All those things are kind of best practices that you really can learn, and to have a head start as you kind of learn the corporate culture, that will certainly help. So you want to be able to stand out from the crowd, make a name for yourself. And, I already mentioned, results. Trying to make results that really speak for themselves as soon as possible, I think is a very valuable kind of lesson that a large company taught me. Oh, Mercy, I think, there you go. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry about that. This question goes out to both of you, but we'll start with Stefan. What does a day at work look like for you? So that could be, what are the best parts about your day, or what are the less appealing parts about your day? What do you look forward to the most? Any way that you want to answer this question.
Yeah. So at one level, I'd say that what I love about what I do is the fact that every day I get to do a bunch of different things. And so there's a tremendous diversity. If I was doing the very same thing every single hour, every single day, I would not be nearly as fulfilled as I am in what I do. So the other thing I would say is that I'm very intentional about how I spend my time. I have every day, like every Monday, I will dedicate to building our company internally. I'll identify a couple days a week where I'll work on new business. I've got a couple days a week that I identify specifically for serving clients. So I try to pick themes to become more efficient so that I'm not constantly interrupted in different directions. But having said that, a given day I could be on the phone talking with a client, helping answer a question they may have regarding a decision they've got to make. I might also be speaking with a high-level prospect to learn more about what their needs are, to see if we're a good fit. I might be brainstorming with somebody on my team about a better way to do things operationally. Per Joe's comment about the importance of writing, I might be writing a proposal for a new client. You know, I will often spend time every day looking at the markets, studying different investments that we're either in right now or looking at. And that diversity of my day is one of the things that I love. Sometimes you can kind of end the day a little bit frazzled, or exhausted and tense because you might have had to switch gears a bunch of different times in different ways. But that's also what I love about what I do and gets me up in the morning.
Terrific. Yeah, I'll kind of follow up on that. I don't think any 2 days look exactly alike, just like no 2 days in the market looked exactly alike. I would say that, you know, working from home is something since the pandemic that I've been able to make work. So I've got 2 small children, and it's really been a blessing to, you know, have a zero commute, except when I do have my commute. I kind of jam pack my working from home versus, you know, as much as possible to getting to New York City, where I have an office and I have many of my clients, and, you know, I have different events. So, you know, typically I'm at home. I'm working from, you know, my multi-screen desk here. I read several publications, some of which I pay for, some of which are free. So right off the bat, there's just constant just learning what different strategists are saying. I'll look at my alerts. I'm on the Charles Schwab platform, for example. So I like to find out, you know, does someone need to move money? Did someone change their address? You just kind of start with, you know, the to-do list right from the platform. I'll strategize big picture investments. You know, investing is it's a long-term thing, and you can't make too many short-term changes in a portfolio because markets are just ever moving, especially over the last 2 years. So I will strategize about kind of the next quarterly rebalance. You know, what is the Fed doing? What has inflation been doing? These are just things on a daily, weekly, monthly basis you just kind of keep track of and think about what your strategy is going to look like. I plan my next New York City visit. I contact clients. I'm a recurring contributor on Asset TV. For those of you who don't know, it's really a B2B platform with really great online content, and I do a lot of interviews in the studio. I actually did one recently on the New York Stock Exchange floor, which is like a dream come true. But birthdays, anniversaries, did anyone move? Just checking in with clients constantly. So you can't control the market. People are always moving and living and changing, and you just kind of have to stay on top of it as best as you can.
I would just add one thing to that, and that's that I think in the wealth management business, there's also a really healthy mix between time spent at your desk and time off your desk out there meeting with people, you know, in different environments. And I like that mix too.
Really good point. Just for those of you thinking about what career path you might go into, as someone going to New York City to meet with clients, often a lot of those meetings are over coffee, lunches, dinners, happy hours, sometimes golf even. There's a ton of work behind the desk, but there's also a very big, deep relationship building part too.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Both of you have talked about at like some point in your day, you will have to, you know, read something or watch something to keep up with current events. So for someone in the audience that's looking to pursue a career that's similar to yours, what are some recommendations of these resources? It could be books, podcasts, apps, or any news channels that you do watch every day that kind of keep you updated on what's going on in the markets.
You know, I'll tackle that. And my answer is going to be very different. Okay, I don't think information is especially valuable today. It's a commodity, and you know, you could sit there and read the Wall Street Journal from front to back. You could read the New York Times from front to back, and guess what? Now you've just read as much as everybody else, so you have no net advantage. And I think that one of the mistakes that people make is they confuse data in with results or insight. And I think that it's actually more important for you to identify the key things that you want to get better at and understand how they're going to move your practice forward, or and maybe along the same lines, how they're going to better help your clients. And then I would focus on information or experiences or relationships with people, mentors that are specific to that goal and specific to that skill set, but not just kind of general market-wide information. You can spend a lot of time doing that, but I don't think it's going to help you, not in a deep sense. You gotta kind of know it, and you get good at very quickly getting a sense of, okay, how's the market doing? But I would encourage you to be thoughtful about how you, just like you need to be smart about how you digest food, I think you need to be smart about how you digest data and not just kind of fall into the trap of more is better.
Yeah, everybody on the call should write that down. That's a fantastic answer, really brilliant point. Being hyper-focused on the things that you want to get better at and how you're going to grow your practice, and whatever your goal is, concentrate your time on that. Just to kind of answer it the other way, someone who's, in high school, college, or still to this day, I think there's a publication called The Morning Brew. It's fast and it's humorous, and it's quotable too. So to Stefan's point, not spending too much time on news, that's a really good way of getting quick, news that's can just get you ready for the day. As far as financial news, I've Deal Book from New York Times, Andrew Ross Sorkin. There's some really good information in there. There's some overlap, though. To your point, I kind of skip to the bottom to the key bullet points that the top of it is often, the meat and potatoes is overlap. It's too redundant. And then briefing.com is the last. There's every market close, and there's a midday update, but the close update it's a 1 page. It takes 2 minutes to read, and it tells you what the economic reports were of the day, what the estimates were, was it above or below, and maybe a few standout stocks to pay attention to. I read others. I do read a few other things that I pay money for, and I get some really kind of some information that helps with clients, I find. But for anyone on this call, if you start with those three free publications, I think you'll be in really good shape.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this question is to you, Stefan. Having traveled and worked in different cities such as New York City, Tokyo, and now Austin, have there been any noticeable differences in the work culture in those different cities, irrespective of the company that you worked with? And now that you've been based in Austin for over 20 years now, what made you, start your company there and eventually settle there?
Yeah, fun question. I love traveling, and I think every city has different things about it to appreciate. But to make some kind of generalizations, I would say Tokyo, amazing city, just incredible culture, food, the people are wonderful. But the work culture knows no bounds. I mean, I would say one of the downsides to Tokyo is you're going to work 24/7, and you're especially if you're working with a local company there, you're gonna deal with some of that work culture. I think the experience of working for a local company versus an international company there can be very different. I speak fluent Japanese. That also can make a big difference as to what the experience is like there. On the upside, I got to meet a lot of people from all over the world that were there like I was for several years. And it was just an incredible exposure to many different ways of thinking and cultures and people, and just a really vibrant opportunity. But, if you're married and have kids or something, it would be a really tough thing, I think, to juggle some of the kind of the workload culture that, at least when I was there, was very much like you have to be in the office. I think remote working is something that has had an impact, and talking with some friends there still. So I think that'll probably be easing up a bit. but it's still, at least back then, was very, very much kind of in person. New York, amazing, right? Also very intense. I had the opportunity to work for Goldman Sachs and Credit Suisse First Boston, two very different cultures. Goldman Sachs was, back then anyways, was extraordinarily tight, very strong culture, very team-oriented. Credit Suisse First Boston was a brilliant place, but very different. Every desk was out, it was kind of like internecine warfare. Every desk was fighting with other desks for capital allocation and resources. There were brilliant people fighting it out internally, which raised everybody's game, but did not see nearly as much teamwork as I had at Goldman. But in New York, I'd say back then too, especially if you're a junior, everything rolls downhill. And I started investment banking, and I think it's although it seems like recently there've been some moderation and attempt by the banks to introduce more kind of life work balance. The fact is still that as the junior person, you're going to be working a crazy number of hours. But in defense of that, I will say I learned more in those 2 years. It would have been like working 8 years in any other kind of normal job. I got opportunities to be exposed to senior level decision makers, CEOs, CFOs, and Fortune 500 companies, really famous business people that are in the news all the time. And I was responsible for the numbers on the investment banking team. So it was a lot of pressure, a lot of work, but I got to sit in meetings where I really didn't belong. Right? I got that opportunity to sit there and listen and learn. So it's always a trade-off, right? And I think the important thing is you got to make sure that you understand that trade-off and that you're comfortable with it. Because I think if you go into it kind of knowing what it is, you're going to have a better experience than if you go into it and they're painting kind of you got really great life-work balance, and you get into it and you suddenly discover that it's very different, then that can be kind of jarring. So, I would say in terms of Austin, this is a weird thing to say because I never would have guessed it till I lived here, but I found Austin to be one of the most entrepreneurial and diverse cultures of anywhere that I've lived. More diverse, open-minded for different cultures, different opinions, different worldviews than any other city I've lived in. And I did not expect that from Texas. And I don't think that's true in some smaller Texas cities, but certainly in Austin, a really vibrant environment. And you've got a lot of young people moving here from a variety of sectors, financial services, technology. And it's much safer today, I think, than New York. Tokyo, by contrast, was also incredibly safe. I mean, I've never been in such a large city in my life where I felt just completely safe anywhere, any time of day. Really, really amazing. Public transportation. I didn't need a car when I lived in New York or Tokyo. Unless you live downtown and work downtown in Austin, you're pretty much going to need a car. So, very different cities, each with different pros and cons. I think something to appreciate about all of them. And, happy to connect offline if any of you are, fielding offers in cities and you want another perspective. But those are a few tidbits to get you kind of start the conversation.
All right, thank you so much. Both of you have spoken previously about the banking crisis that's going on in the US today. Question for you, Joe. How do you think this is different from the financial crisis in 2008? And also, why do you think it's important for Gen Zs or someone in the audience currently to learn or know more about this?
Sure. Yeah. 2008, right? There's some recency bias there. People associate the word recession with 2008. I mean, the difference is that 2008 was an existential crisis. We were wondering which banks were solvent, if insurers would go bankrupt, and even at times is there money in the ATM if I want to pull it out? So it's not a global crisis today like that. We're not on the brink of financial collapse. So there's almost like a new stigma to the word recession, I think, for anyone who lived through it, for me personally, graduating through it. Maybe some of those on the call were younger and they had parents had, difficult financial times or things at work. If you study history, it's this time period that we're in now is probably similar to a couple of other eras. We look at 2002 where there was excess in the markets, valuations were too high. The Fed was hiking rates, inflation was increasing, but after the Fed was able to kind of get the inflation under control, start cutting rates, we had a period of, relatively long sustainable growth from there. Another one that comes up a lot is in the 1970s, 72 to 75, significant economic turmoil, geopolitical turmoil. I mean, there was embargo acts, there was stagflation. The Fed had made a bunch of mistakes. The Fed wasn't aggressive enough. There was policy mistakes. They kind of flip-flopped. So it's just today, I know there's challenges, and, some of what I say is around, geopolitical tensions, and we've just have this kind of fresh conflict in the Middle East, and there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainty and devastation there. So it's easy to say we're not, it's not as devastating. It's a little bit different this time, but in reality, it's just 2008 was a much more it's just a little bit different today, where we have low, very, very low, historically low unemployment. We're adding hundreds of thousands of jobs. There's tons of job openings. The consumer is really strong. It's uncertain because we're coming off of a pandemic. The record keeping 100 years ago when we had the last pandemic, we just don't. There's not a whole lot of lessons or details to be learned economically from then and now. There was a historic stimulus. There was all these different things happening. Over the last, since COVID occurred. But at the end of the day, we'll see. Well, those are kind of unknowns that we'll have to see how it plays out. Because, like I said, history doesn't really have a roadmap for us. But as it stands right now, earnings have been strong. They've beaten expectations, kind of quarter over quarter. The consumer drove GDP to, don't quote me on the number right now, but north of 4.5% in the last quarter, which is extremely high, totally better than expectations. So there's just a lot of strength right now that we did not see in 2008. So I'm not going to say it's complete butterflies and rainbows, moving forward. And there very well could be a recession, but it won't be a great recession.
Thank you. Stefan, you spoke about how you love working with banks or people that have your clients working with banks that have client-driven business models. So how do you see the industry specifically evolving over the next 5 years? And for the people who are looking to join this industry, how can they be a part of reinventing the banking and wealth management industry?
Yeah, so I'm going to tie a couple thoughts together to something Joe mentioned, and that's that I don't care how bad the economy or an industry gets. I want you to understand that in turmoil is opportunity. And one of the big benefits that you have in being young is you're not saddled with past expectations. You have the ability to go with a clean sheet of paper and be creative and look at things in a fresh new way. And I think that's a really, really powerful asset that people joining new companies or new industries today have. So just because the headlines in any particular sector, whether it's now or later in the future, get bad, which they periodically do, realize that is a time of unprecedented opportunity. There's more millionaires created during the Great Depression than at any other time until recent last 20 years of the technology boom. So let's talk about banking. We are right now in the United States going through a fairly significant banking crisis. It's important that you understand it on two levels. You're not going to read about it for the very simple reason that bank regulators don't want there to be more runs on the bank. But there is a crisis being caused by a couple things. Number one, people are taking out their deposits from banks and giving it to folks like Joe and myself who can put it in a segregated account where it's safer and earning a much higher rate of interest. For example, if you're half smart about, if you're kind of a good consumer of money, you should know that today you should be getting about a 5% return on a relatively risk-free money market type fund. The devil's in the detail. There's a lot that are not safe, but if you pick the right one, you should be getting about 5%. Banks today, per the FDIC, who regulates all the banks, are paying on average 0.4% to savings holders in the U.S. So not even a tenth of what you should be able to be getting. Okay. So people, back when rates were zero, it's like, well, you know, rates are zero. They're only paying me 15 basis points. Human laziness kicks in and you're like, whatever, let's just keep it there. But now with rates being much, much higher, people are waking up and they're saying, hey, I want my money. I want it to be earning a much higher rate of return for me rather than making, you know, bankers more money. Two, understand that banks also hold a lot of long-term treasury bonds, which in the last 2 years have fallen over 50%. So their balance sheets have gotten hurt. And number three, because interest rates have gone up so high and so quickly, the commercial real estate loan market is in trouble. And in fact, the commercial real estate market is falling in almost every sector and significantly so. And banks are highly exposed to commercial loans. And the best way to think about that is a slow-moving train wreck for the next 2 or 3 years, where there's going to be a real problem as a lot of those loans mature. Now, the first two things I mentioned are quantitative, but the next thing I'm going to mention I think is even more important. And that has to do with the culture, the integrity of banks. 35 years ago in America, people thought of banks as being trustworthy, a safe, trustable institution. No longer true. And the way to think about it is this. In my opinion, the fundamental business model in the way that most banks operate is absolutely terrible. It's decrepit. It's like anti-consumer. Let me give you a very simple example that'll make it crystal clear for you. The way banks operate today is they ask themselves the question, what is the least rate of interest that I can give my customers without them leaving the bank? I mean, what a zero value add mindset, right? By contrast, if you think about, you know, Apple, for example. Apple sits around and goes, hey, how do we make an iPhone better? How do we make the Mac better? How do we make an iPad better? How do we make the battery life go longer? How do we improve resolution? How do we make it faster? And by adding value, they've been successful then at charging a pretty penny, and they've made a lot of money. But they make it because they're thinking about, how do I add value for the customer, not what is the least amount of value I need to add for the customer to get them to stay. And I'm sharing this with you because of this. Banks today, if you look at most teller jobs, most lending jobs, I think most of those jobs are going to disappear with automation. Computers can do their jobs better than most people can. And I think there's going to be a huge loss. And in fact, if you look at the footnotes in quarterly reports, you'll see banks are already laying people off, and that's going to be nonstop for the next 5 years. So if you're joining a bank, you've got to make sure that you really do some homework and think about the culture of the bank, and not just the lip service kind of headlines that they tell people to recruit, but like, what's the underlying culture of that firm? I am familiar with several banks that distinguish themselves in a positive way. One's here in Texas. They pride themselves on service. I bet everybody on this call, for example, has had an experience where you call a company and you get stuck in like that, like hit 1 for this, hit 2 for that, hit 3 for that. And it's like, all you want to do is find a way to talk to a person. You're like, what button do I need to hit to get a human being, right? Well, they give out their cell phone number to their clients who any time of day, any day of the week, can reach out to them. Hey, I need help. Customer service. They're winning because they put their customer first on that basis. Another example would be a bank like SoFi Bank. SoFi Bank in the last quarter added over 700,000 new customers. Think about that. That's just an amazingly large number of customers to onboard in any one quarter. If you go to their website, you'll see, for example, that they have a strong culture promoting their, like, how do we add value for our customers kind of mindset. And this is interesting, by the way, for this particular, for you. One of the things that they do is if you are a customer of SoFi Bank, you can get access to this really top tier team of career coaches that they have on staff, that anybody who's a customer of that bank can call up, make an appointment, and get career advice, talking about different choices you may have. Hey, I've got 2 different offers. Which one's better? Career branding, how to negotiate, when you have a review with the boss. I mean, anything you can think of. And it's right there on their home. I mean, it's just, right center in front on their website. So I think those are examples of banks that are putting their customer first. But make no mistake about it, I think a lot of banking jobs are going to disappear. And so where you want to be thoughtful about it, I think the jobs that are going to be least likely to disappear are ones that involve selling, that involve influence, that involve architecture. And by architecture, I mean kind of designing solutions, not necessarily implementing them, but the design of problem solving, things like that. But if you really look at banking as a whole, I think there's a tremendous amount of change that you're going to see coming to that sector. And we're already starting to see it when you look at the numbers, in the SEC reports for different banks that I've looked at. It's pretty stunning. And again, that's opportunity for you. So I would say, whatever industry you pick, whatever company you pick, make sure that you are very consciously making a choice around the culture and understand, what is the essence of their business model? Is it about adding value for their client, or is it like most banks today that go, hey, let's give them the worst service they can get without leaving, which I think is a loser's game, and you're gonna see a lot of banks get pushed out of business because of that. So kind of a controversial perspective, but I am extremely confident based on the data that I've seen and just kind of common sense that you're going to see some radical changes in banking going forward.
That was really insightful. Thank you so much. And the next question for the both of you, we'll start with Joe, is what's one piece of advice you wish someone had told you earlier on in your career journey?
Yeah, I know. Starting off, I mean, you're fresh, you're trying to make a career out of little experience just from school, but I think it's really valuable. I wish I had known right away, where even in college, in high school even, I wish I knew that I wanted to get a career where I looked up to somebody already in the role. So a lot of us following your passions. I think there's something to be said, and I'm not saying don't follow your passions, but if you can see yourself in 10 or 15 or 20 years, what life looks like for you, and probably the easiest way to do that is who's somebody that lives in a house that you want to live in, or lives in a city that you want to live in, has a family like you want to have a family, that has a commute, that has the whole picture, right? They spend they've got the country club, or they have the travel, or they have the dog. Like literally down to the way they talk, they dress. I wish someone said that's the job you want, or at least that's the direction you might want to go in. So that's I'll keep it at that. Find your mentor, find your goal, and I think that's a really good starting point for any career.
I think that's great advice, and I would just add another way to look at it is one of the most fulfilling things that you're going to ever experience outside of being able to pay your bills is impact. When you make impact on another human being, whether it's in philanthropy or helping a client in a work context, it makes you feel just so good inside. And so another way to think about it is to look out there in the world, or look inside the company and find a problem, a big problem, a recurring problem, a problem that really impacts people, and be curious about how would you solve it? How could you fix that? How could you help them? And if you keep asking those questions of yourself, you're going to bump into something that you go, that's what I want to figure out. And you will then, I think, be drawn to a way or drawn to a calling that will be not only very successful because people are very willing to pay to help you solve problems for them, but I think even more importantly, it will be a path for inner fulfillment because you're going to be making a big difference on people's lives and not just kind of going through the motions, check the box, get paid, rinse and repeat. And so I think, finding something that your heart resonates with, working with people that you really, really, whose company you enjoy, whether that's in the company or with the type of clients you work with, that matters a lot. And I think you get that right, it'll inspire you to dig deep and kind of be your best version of yourself in whatever you decide to pursue.
Thank you. This question goes out to any of you, whoever wants to answer it. So earlier on, you mentioned about how your days look different and also how you have families and all these other things that you're showing up for. So this question is about work-life balance. How do you manage to still show up for your clients and show up for your family and friends and all these other people that need you, but without feeling burnt out? So how do you manage everything you have to do, but still show up for yourself as well?
I'll give a quick answer.
I want to know the answer.
I know, right? If only we were that simple. I was thinking about work-life balance and what does it mean, and if you have FOMO in your life, and for those of you who don't know, fear of missing out. If you are missing out on things with your family, I think that's the only real metric, at least for me personally, to say I'm not doing it. I'm not doing such a great job. That's the one key performance indicator is the level of FOMO that you have with your family. So as long as if you're fulfilled and and you're able to not miss those moments, I think you're doing a really good job. I've made this kind of decision with a little motivation from COVID to work from home. But everything's on my terms, and it's been a really nice blessing. And at the end of the day, I need to make sure that my clients are happy. And by the way, that never ends. You're constantly on your toes, and you're always doing everything you can to win and earn and win their business and earn their trust and keep their trust. But if at the end of the day, I can feel good about doing exactly that and knowing that I've given everything I can to my clients, then the rest of the time is yours. And if that's how you balance it out, you can be with your family, of course, and that's for me personally a really important part of my job.
Yeah, I think that's something that all ambitious, hardworking professionals struggle with. But two things I think that'll help you coming out of the gate. Number one, you got to draw boundaries. So, for example, for me, I stop working at 6 p.m. every night, and I sit down and have dinner with my family. I don't care what prospect it is, who it is, doesn't matter. I'm sitting down with my family at 6 p.m. every night, period. Two, I've been very intentional about not trying to schedule evening networking events or weekend networking events, again, because I want that space for me and for my family. So you got to draw your own boundaries, and those boundaries, what works today, what works tomorrow, it's going to change, right? It's going to change. Do you have kids? No kids. You married? Not married? Like it's but just periodically, I think it's important to look at it and go, okay, for where I'm at now in life, what makes sense? But if you don't have boundaries, it can be very exhausting trying to navigate that. And if you, by contrast, if you have a firm kind of commitment or boundary, and you say, hey, 6 p.m., I don't do that. I sit down with my family for dinner. And you say that with like an inherent confidence, nobody will ever challenge that. It makes it easy. Second thing I would say is when you do spend time with people, whether they're clients, but especially your family or your loved ones, being present means really being present with them. Shut off your phone, give them your attention, and really engage with them. I think that presence is something that we all need to work on being better at. It's so easy to get pulled in different thousand directions. But when you're with somebody that you love and care about, I think one of the biggest gifts you can give them, you can make a huge impact on them, whether it's 5 minutes or 5 hours, is to really give them your undivided full attention, mentally, physically, emotionally, being completely present.
Thank you both so much. We've come to the end of our panel discussion. Thank you for sharing about your lives and your career journeys and basically all the questions that were presented to you. For all the people in the audience, if you do have any follow-up questions or you just love to, learn more about how they got here, or, you want to connect with us, I'm sure all of us will be happy to connect offline. You can find us on LinkedIn under all the names that are listed on the screen today. And thank you so much. And we hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. For Joe and Stefan, do you have any last words for the audience, or should we close it off?
Thanks for having us. It's been a really great conversation.
Yeah, by being here today, I volunteered to stay in touch with anyone who took the time to listen to our call. So happy to be in touch, and thank you again to you, Mercy, and to everyone who's organized this great event.
So thank you, everyone. All right, have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you.